Good morning. Robert here from the Red Dragon School of Martial Arts. Today we'll be talking about Tai Chi's 10 essential ingredients. And when you think about practicing Tai Chi, there are certain qualities within the practice that we try to maintain throughout the experience. And these areas that we'll be covering basically deal with the mind and body and spirit. Long time ago, when these systems of learning originated, they were spiritual practices. They were methods of learning how to deal with our humanity, our stresses, our cravings, our wantings and worries and things like that, and to better know thyself, if you will. And so they were once considered spiritual practices, allowing us to sit still and meditate and develop an awareness of our spiritual nature. So when we think about these ingredients, they were designed for making us better understand ourselves. Now, what I would like to recommend that you consider, when you think about trying to memorize a list of ingredients, for example, it's highly recommended that you print them out. Write out your own summary and put it on a wall in an area that is your training area. Highly recommend that you do that. So when you walk into that area, you see them, and on a regular basis, you get a quick glance of them. And before you know it, you won't have to worry about memorizing them. They'll be natural for you to be aware of. And these ingredients are not only intended to be the way that we practice Tai Chi. Ideally, this is a very natural art form. So its purpose is to help you embody these qualities throughout your day. Whether you're lifting or walking or moving or any time you're doing something, you would like to be able to have at least the essence of these ingredients involved. So let's take a closer look at the 10 essentials. Now, when we think of the outcome, when we think about what we're trying to get out of these essential ingredients, there are two major areas that we work with. And one is remaining stable. We all want to make sure that our body is always stable, because when we start to notice our balance is waning, we lock up and we, change our focus on regaining our balance. So if we can remain at ease, it would be a lot easier for us to guide energy through these motions and to enjoy and manage ourselves. All right, let's take a look at the very first ingredient. The first ingredient is to raise the head. Literally, the crown point of the head is if you're pushing up towards the ceiling, kind of pushing on the ceiling. What we're going to do is we're going to bring the chin in. We're going to close the mouth so that your mouth is closed but not clenched. You're not putting your teeth down. Your jaw is kind of relaxed, open but not open, closed but not closed. The tongue on the roof of the mouth, just behind the teeth, and the mouth is maintained comfortable. So this way, you're not breathing through your mouth and drying your mouth out when you practice. So you keep your mouth closed. Breath is comfortably in and out of the nose. The eyes are sparkly. So in other words, you brighten your gaze. When you think about understanding yourself and trying to understand the body's energy, it's easier if you can feel that energy, right? And the easiest way to feel that energy is to elevate it. And to raise your spirit means to elevate your energy internally. Now, there are different modes that you can use to do that. And when you think of martial arts, and one of the benefits of training a martial art like this, for example, is your ability to defend yourself. And in nature, if we look at what does an animal do when it wants to defend itself? Well, it raises up its spirit. In the case of an animal, we call that being fierce, right? Well, we have that ability to be fierce. And we can really turn up our spirit by being fierce. We can also be, scared. So by being afraid, your energy comes up too, but that's sort of an uncontrolled thing, isn't it? Your spirit was raised, but it was more of a sense of fear. And so you can raise your energy deliberately by raising your spirit. Here's another mode. By raising yourself in a very happy-like way, by being a happy dragon, bright smile, and raise up as if you have good reason to be happy, a joyful-like spirit. And that's another way to elevate that energy and make it a lot easier for you to feel. So, first ingredient, lift your head, raise your spirit. All right, moving down the body, we want to relax your shoulders. Generally speaking, to facilitate being stable, you have to let your energy down, right? Don't hold your energy up in the air. So when practicing, we want the shoulders, elbows, wrists, and fingers to be settled and gently extended. By extending the body, it's a lot easier for us to connect. So we want to keep our chi sinking down by lowering the shoulders, elbows, wrists, and fingers. Sinking the chest. By relaxing the chest inward, we're able to round the spine. When we think about moving the body, you're trying to conduct motion through your body, and your spine plays a major role to guide that energy up through your hands. So to connect, we want to sink the chest. And also when you sink the chest and round the back like that, you tend to feel that interconnectivity between both sides of the body. So sinking the chest aids in sinking your chi down, but it also aids in the connection of the upper half to the lower half of the body. Moving down the body, we want to relax the waist. When we think of the waist, we tend to think of the waist as a circular region of the body. We think of our belt line, right? But the reality is the waist is the lower spine in this case. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to open up that area and relax the waist down. And by relaxing the waist down, we can free up the spine and keep our root nice and stable. So relaxing the waist opens up the gate. The gate we call the Ming Men is the hinge between the upper and lower half of the body. So open that gate right up. Also, we'd like to, in order to use energy and not strength, we want to use your mind instead of force. So imagine guiding motions through feel. Very comfortable and relaxed, feeling internally and guiding internal motions only using your mind rather than muscular strength. And when you're feeling your body and you use your mind, what you're doing is using electrical impulses that move down through your body, to say the least, right? So using your mind is using your energy rather than using your core strength. Right? So very, very important. And when we think about the level of energy, a lot of times, you hear this word relax so much that it's like, well, we know what it means to relax. We can just sit on the couch and relax, right? But that's not really what we mean when we say relax. We like to say there's a certain pliability to the energy, and you're relaxed, enabling that energy, but it's sort of a middle way. In other words, it's not too stiff and it's not too limp. You want to have an animation that's useful to you, sort of a middle way, sort of a corresponding equal and opposite of not too heavy, not too light, not too empty, not too full, sort of a middle way-like feeling to the energy. Now, this theory is based on this idea of yin and yang. So distinguishing empty, full means understanding where your weight is. So as you stride, for example, the way we would exhibit empty, full in striding would be having all the weight on one side, allowing me to very carefully place my feet and shift my weight. So what we're doing in that case is we're very specific about where is the weight and where we're going to transfer the weight to. So by practicing carefully shifting your weight, being willing to be very clear, you end up with a lot more nimble footwork. So ideally, in order to control your feet, you want to be very clear about empty, full. Now, that's also true of your body. When you think about moving energy through your body, you would start with a sense of emptiness, relaxed, and by being soft, it allows us to become hard. So the emptiness and fullness is also in our hand technique. It's not only in our weight shifting. So we want to be conscious of the differential that we're referring to when moving, right? The emptiness and fullness. So we want to be very clear on the yin and yang of these motions. Now, we also would like to connect the upper and lower half of the body. When you think about things that you do, even throwing a ball, you would never throw a ball like this. You would never get the ball very far if you only use your arm. When you think about the power in this kind of a system, the movement comes from the feet. So the feet press down the ground. The legs are coiled. And with that coiled energy, we can straighten the leg quickly and connect the upper and lower body together. So we can conduct forces through our body when we engage and lengthen the body. So we want to connect that upper and lower body. Also, we want to work and understand the inner and outer nature of the motion. In other words, we would like to connect the inner energy of our body to the outer actions we see. So, in order to do that, we need to understand the mechanics. We need to understand the meaning and design of these actions. It's nice to be able to move and just have a great day and just, but if you would like to get more work value out of it, more exercise value out of it, and more martial use out of it, well, then it helps to understand the meaning of what you're performing. And with your imagination, behaving a little like you're in a role of a play. Imagine you were playing a role and you were playing the part of a martial artist. So here you're going to intercept the technique, you're going to block and strike back. Well, when you do it with that kind of intention, with that kind of a spirit and imagination, your body reacts more. So connecting the inner and outer tends to be a function of understanding the meaning of the motion and allows us to coordinate the whole body together as a result. In addition to that, when you think about moving with energy or moving your body in this way, we want one action to, smoothly flow into the next action. So we say practice continuous without interruption. So the motion is constantly changing from emptiness and fullness in the action. So continuous without interruption allows that freedom of motion, allows us to practice yielding and working with force. So nonstop motion from beginning to end. A lot of times when you see people practice, you'll see the movement, what looks like the movement is come to an end. And then they go on to the next action. The reality is the energy of the motion kept going. We may see the framing on the action itself stop, but the energy continues on and goes through a constant state of change. So you're constantly feeling that inner change occurring. Last but not least, seek quiescence within motion. To me, that's a beautiful word, seeking quietness, right? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to remain calm. We're trying to tame our mind a little bit, and we want to be able to be quiescent, calm when practicing. Now, there's a practical reason for that. We don't want to be thinking too much. You don't want to be using words and strategies and thinking this and thinking that about the situation. Imagine just clearly observing the situation, waiting for the opponent to move, and then attaching yourself to that action. That enables you to understand the force and the type of movement you're feeling, and then we can then yield and guide that motion. We want to know our opponent, but we don't want our opponent to know us. So by being quiescent in the mind, by not having too much mental activity, you're able to see more clearly what's happening, your mind is clear, and you're able to know how to respond naturally. It's not like you have to think of strategies. This is not about learning a bunch of techniques. What this is about learning your natural abilities, the natural energy that you have within you, the natural qualities and abilities that you can develop within you. It's not about remembering a bunch of things. So it's about being able to manage your body in emergency if need be, but also manage your body in a very consistent way when you don't need to, right? So these are what we call the 10 essential ingredients. I recommend that you spend a little time on them, elaborate a little bit. I actually like to recommend writing them out by hand because that helps you to associate them a little bit and to sort of get a feel for that. Now, when we think of some of the other qualities, there's one other area, a couple of other areas I want to touch on real quick, and that is the footwork. So we think about the framing of the body. There are basic shapes that we use when practicing. And when practicing with our footwork, what we want to recognize is that there's probably the most common shape in martial arts, and that is called the bow stance. Here, when we first look at the setup, my feet are shoulders width apart. In the bow stance, we typically have the rear foot 45 degrees. So here, my right foot is open to the corner. Practicing empty full, we're going to sit on one side. We're going to extend the bow stance with good control at shoulders width. We flatten the foot first, and that's the go button to push that weight forward. So in summary, you're being very careful about striding and managing your stability as well as the weight transfer. And it's the same whether it's right or left foot. Now, so the bow stance, being the bow stance, is going to be That way, no matter what direction we face it. So the consistency again, the rear foot opens to the corner, the feet stay shoulders width apart, the foot goes first forward, and then we shift the weight. And that tends to be the order of things. And again, we're doing that as we train. It's not like you have to worry about being perfect with that sort of thing or being absolutely precise. It's a guideline for your behavior. Now, why is it important? Well, because if you have control over your feet, then you're going to be very nimble and you're going to have the capacity to make change. Otherwise, if you find yourself, let's say your bow stance is too big, for example. Now I have a great big strong structure, I can push real hard, but I don't have the ability to move my feet. I have to push, right? So I'm really what we call double weighted. I'm in a precarious position. So the bow stance enables us to have that freedom of footwork. The next one we see very commonly in the form is called the empty stance. The empty stance shares the center line. So in this case, I'm going to open the foot to the corner, again, a V-like shape, and I'm going to touch my left toe on the center. Here, a V-like shape. I have no gap, nor am I crossing the rear foot. So I'm going to keep the foot in a V-like shape. And this is the empty stance. Comes in two forms. Could be the heel, could be the ball, depends on how we need to apply force, right? So the empty stance. So we have bow stance and empty stance. The next one I want to introduce is the equal stance. Now the equal stance is the movement we see when we train in Wu Chi, and it's in the transition between sections of the form. And functionally, it's also a training tool. It's not just a mechanism for bracing the body, but it can be held for prolonged periods of time and used to absorb energy and strength and a meditative technique. So equal stance, a very common stance we see. And there's one other stance, and this one here is a rather unique stance. We call this one the Pu stance. It's a stance where we are based on the bow stance, but what happens in this case is we open the toe to the corner, and in doing so, shifting the weight back allows us to change the center of gravity. So in summary, the Pu stance. So that's sort of rare later in the form, but it's a stance that gives us that flexibility and that option. Also, there are postures where you're on one foot. Kicking techniques need to have control over our stability and on one foot. So golden rooster, knee is up, toe open to the corner, waist open a little bit, and there'll be stances like that. So the basic footwork is what you see. Hand techniques. When you think of the hand techniques, there are basically three types of hand techniques that we see in Tai Chi. Generally speaking, the most common method of Tai Chi that we see is the palm. We think of the palm. The palm tends to be a little bit more advanced in its use, but it's way less barbaric. When you think about being able to push or apply force or manipulate your hand, having your hand naturally open is a whole lot easier than positioning it into some very firm-like posture. So we think of managing the palm. The palm is very natural. Here we maintain a very slight space, a little bit of a natural curve. We tend to have the thumb open. We call this the tiger's mouth. So whether you're using it as a push technique, or you're using it as a grab technique, or you're simply circling the hands, generally speaking, the hand postures pretty much maintain the same, whether you're warding or pulling or striking. So that's the palm, a very natural shape to the hand. The next one, not quite as common, but is the fist. When you think of the fist, generally speaking, you're going to close your fingers, going to roll your hands inward, and you want to try to make the hand totally connected. What we don't want are gaps. So having a real soft hand and hoping to deliver any kind of force with that would be a problem for us, right? So what we want to try to do is to roll that hand inward, let the thumb touch that first or second section of the finger like that. This is flat and this is flat, and the hand is now reinforced. So we don't need to squeeze it hard to do that. We want energy to go through the hand, so let your hand be natural. So this is the typical striking surface, or you can use the back of the hand for chopping. You can even use the edge of the hand like a hammer, so to speak. So the fist is a very popular way to deliver force. Even though it's a little barbaric, it's quite safe for the hand. And then the third and most rarely used position we call the hook. The hook gets its inspiration from one of the 5 animals, the crane technique. And in this case, the hand is open and brought together with fingertips. Here, the strike surface is at the very back of the hand, and we reinforce that with a good supported wrist. So this is the hook for blocking, striking, controlling, and managing the opponent. So those are the hand techniques and the foot techniques. So I would highly recommend that you take some time and go over this material, kind of write it out a little bit and play with the idea. I also like to hear questions back from you, or if there's thoughts or concerns about any of the things that we covered today. Be sure to like and share so you get these things in sequence, and that way there you don't have to worry about scrambling back and forth to try to assemble this sort of thing. All right, so Wednesday's class we'll be talking about the opening and going over and giving that our attention, embodying all of these ingredients, and we'll continue to go from there. So in the meantime, have a marvelous day, get outside and practice, and I look forward to spending time with you on Wednesday. Have a great day.